Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Imilo at Home. My name is Ahia, and welcome to my home uh, and to my yard. It is a beautiful day here in Puna, drizzly and sunny. And today, let's discuss rapid ohia death. We have two specialists who are here to answer our questions, JB and Corey. JB, Corey, will you please introduce yourselves?
Aloha, my name is Corey Yanger, and I do education and outreach for Rapid Ohia Death on the island of Hawaii. I work for University of Hawaii's Cooperative Extension Service.
Hi, I'm JB Friday. I'm Extension Forester with the University of Hawaii. So I work with the University of Hawaii, and I work with landowners and people who manage forests, in particular ohia forests.
Thank you so much for joining us and answering our questions. Rapid ohia death has been in the news. It has affected our communities. And why is this such a big issue in our islands today?
Ohia forests are really important for our islands. Ohia makes up about half of all our forests in our islands and about 80% of all the native forests. So you have some koa forests, some omane forests, but most of our native forests are ohia forests. The most important thing ohia forests do for us, they protect our watersheds. And we've known this for a long time. And the upland watershed protection forests in the state are almost all ohia. And that's where our water comes from. For agriculture, for drinking, for everyday use, that's where our water comes from. The other important thing about ohia forests, it's a habitat for our native, especially our native birds, our native plants and animals, but especially the birds like the iwi, the apapane, the amakihi. They all rely on ohia flowers for their subsistence. There's a little bit of use for ohia for timber, for wood, for posts and poles and stuff, but really the value is these things we call ecosystem services. It's the value of what the forests do for us that's critical.
Ohia are really interwoven in Hawaiian culture in a variety of ways. They are included in many of the mo'olelo and oli and mele, the stories, sayings, chants, songs. They were used to make things in the olden times, things like canoes and homes, hale. And they were also really important as physical embodiments of gods and goddesses. So gods and goddesses like Kane, god of water, and Laka, goddess of hula, Pele, goddess of fire. And today we see that ohia are very revered for their aesthetic qualities. They're really beautiful trees, and people, up until very recently with the situation with rapid ohia death, were using ohia in lei.
So where did rapid ohia death come from? How did it get to Hawaii?
It's a really interesting question where rapid ohia death came from. So it's caused by a fungus. In fact, it turns out that there are two different fungi causing this disease. And it's even a little more complicated. One came from Asia, one came from Latin America. And we know this from the DNA fingerprinting, that the scientists have been able to extract the DNA from the fungus here, and they find that there's actually two different species of fungus killing ohia. So how did a fungus get here? Usually things like this come in the plant trade. We import plants from all over the world, and maybe this came in on a plant that wasn't showing any signs of a disease, but somehow the disease jumped to ohia. Maybe it mutated and it found a host in ohia. So this is how invasive species get here. They get here, sometimes they don't even cause problems where they come from, but when they get loose in Hawaii, they take off and go all over the place. So the lesson is we need better biosecurity. We need to check things better as they come in so we don't get new invasive species.
So our ohia, whether they are in our communities or out in the wild, in the forests, how is rod killing these trees? How is it infecting? How is this infection carried?
Well, rapid ohia death is caused by a fungus. The fungus gets in the sapwood of the tree. And then so what happens is the sapwood can't conduct water, because the sapwood is how the water flows up from the roots up to the leaves of the tree. So when the fungus gets in the sapwood, it blocks it, the leaves don't get any water, and then they turn brown and the tree dies.
So in Puna, our ohia lehua trees have been pretty affected. by Rod. And when I drive over Saddle, up Mauna Loa and on Mauna Kea, I don't see as badly affected ohia trees. Is there a difference? What is happening? Why are some areas looking healthy and other areas consumed?
Those are a couple really good questions. We do tend to see less disease in upper elevation forests. Now, it's interesting that some forests seem less susceptible to the disease, so perhaps some forests are conditions that the fungus doesn't grow in. We know from experiments we've done just with fungus in the lab, if you put it in a refrigerator where it's cold, the fungus doesn't grow very much anymore. So maybe when you go up Saddle Road, you're hitting these higher elevation forests that are cooler, and the fungus doesn't grow very well, so it doesn't cause disease. Likewise, if you go over on the dry side of the island, you see some disease, but not as much. So we all know that dry conditions aren't good for fungus, so maybe those forests aren't as susceptible. Whereas if you go on the warm, wet side, we know that's good for fungus. That's where we see most of the disease. Now, are some trees resistant? Well, we know that some trees are. We've done experiments in the labs where we've inoculated trees with the fungus, and some, even though you inoculate them with the fungus, they don't get the disease. But we don't know how many. Is this 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 1,000,000 trees? We don't know, and we're starting to do a lot more experiments to see about that.
So, is there a way for us to cure a tree that is already infected with rot?
Good question. Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. Once a tree is full of the fungus, there's nothing you can really do to clear the fungus out of the tree. Similar diseases on the mainland, like Dutch elm disease, they've worked on it for many decades, and there's not really a cure. The best thing that you can do is prevent the tree from getting sick. So we're doing some experiments with fungicides where we inoculate a tree with fungicides to see if we can keep the tree from getting the disease. But unfortunately, the results on this are mixed. We're not really sure if we're doing more harm than good at this point. So the game is really about protecting the trees, keeping them from getting the disease, not spreading the disease. That's how we're going to protect our forests.
So, how can we use ohia firewood risk-free? Is there a way to do that? What do we need to know in order to use that firewood?
Yes, using ohia for firewood, ohia makes good firewood even if it's been killed by rapid ohia death. When we're talking about fires, we're talking about using firewood in a hibachi, or using it on your grill, or using it to make an imu. We're not talking about brush fires, just making a brush pile and burning it. You can't do that without a permit from the Department of Health. But as far as spreading the disease goes, it's not a problem. Fire will kill the fungus. What we do ask people, though, is to not move firewood. Burn it where you cut it. Don't bring wood from a badly infected area, such as Lower Puna down by Pahoa, up to a less infected area like Volcano or Waimea. So using it in place for firewood is fine.
So whole forests are at risk. What is it that we can do? What can we as a community do? How can we, people who don't have ohia on their property, or people who are visiting, what can we do?
Even if someone is not a resident of Hawaii or they don't have ohia on their property, they can still participate in preventing the spread of rod by doing good biosanitation, so brushing your shoes and spraying with rubbing alcohol before and after entering forests. They can help to educate others. Definitely spreading the word about this disease and how people can help is really important and critical to preventing the spread. And then lastly, if they are also accessing forests, they can make sure that their vehicles are clean properly by cleaning the wheel wells, undercarriage, and tire treads.
Corey, JB, thank you so much for coming and letting me interview you guys. We are so excited to see what it is that we as a community can do to help this issue.
So thanks for listening and learning about this. Really, at the end of the day, most of our forests in the state are still healthy, and we want to keep them that way. Thanks for learning about this, and thanks for cooperating and helping keeping our forests healthy. Aloha.
Thank you, everybody. Aloha.